Hi folks, we're Tacitus today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. Please listen to this presentation as you would a radio broadcast. In this essay, I'd like to talk about what I believe is one of the most pressing issues facing the entire Western world, and certainly the United States today, and that is the globalist, leftist, willful sabotage of the entire legal infrastructure of the Western world by knowingly placing known radical leftist globalist SJW activists into legal positions such as Attorney General and judges across all courts, lower courts, appeal courts, district courts, higher courts, and even into the Supreme Court. I mean, look at Ketanji Brown Jackson and Sotomayor in the US Supreme Court, both Democrat globalist appointments. And that is a willful attempt to subvert the legal infrastructure in my view, a willful attempt, knowing that they planned it. How can we subvert the legal infrastructure? Let's put this person in. Now, if you read you listen to some of Sotomayor's as an example, or either of them, questions, they ask of litigants and the reasons for judgment. I mean, I reckon a first year, law student in a fourth tier college could do just as well, if not better. And and this is meant to be, this is the apex of the legal jurisdiction capacity of the United States is reflected in these two. I mean, you're kidding me, right? So a willful attempt and a willful effort to subvert the legal infrastructure of the United States with those two appointments, and they'll do more if they can. Hopefully, the Republicans, if they stick to constitutional judges, will be able to make one, maybe two more appointments during the next several years, which are much needed. At least they can quarantine off the Supreme Court from placing activists in there. Now, the world of law and legal practice and jurisprudence generally has now become so subverted that to appoint a judge that actually believes in the law and evidence and facts and the Constitution is now painted by the Democrat globalist leftists as seen as the controversial one. Placing a radical activist, junior low IQ law clerk in the court is viewed as, well, that's how things should be done. How else would you do it? But you appoint someone that believes in the law and the Constitution. That's the radical thing. That's how subverted and perverted things have become. I just want to highlight the President Trump has issued a number of executive orders, and probably too many for the globalist leftists to keep up with for the moment. But they've got the ability to move far quicker than anyone else has, or any other group. Notice when the opposition to President Trump's orders, initiatives, or whatever it is, policies, that the activists can find the money, the resources, and a compliant judge to agree with them, can get emergency hearings. They can get something filed and heard within minutes. On Sunday at midnight, they can get it done, and can get a stay order against President Trump's policies. And they can do that with lightning speed. All the resources, all the infrastructure, all the activists are all lined up, ready to go. I mean, they effectively just have to push a button and it happens. Notice that in reverse, though, that when Biden came in, there was no such ability, and probably a lack of will in some cases as well, but there was no such ability for those that were opposing some of Biden's outrageous. I mean, his policy to let in millions upon millions of illegal aliens. That's well, why were the constitutionalists and the anti-globalists, why were they totally unable to stop that, or to restrict it, or to limit it, or to contain it? Why were they just unable to do any of that? Whereas on the other side, these people can move with lightning speed and they can instantly judge shop. They went down to the judge shop. There are now so many activist judges. Now, a case in point was the recent stay that was put on by the federal judge, Judge Ali Khan. Now, I went back to look at that. I was surprised just how quickly they put it together. And I was surprised at how amateurish the document filings were about, that were against President Trump's policy and why it should be stopped or stayed or put on hold or whatever. It was very amateur. I mean, we're talking, high school level legal arguments here. As a judge, if someone presented those documents to me, I'd have laughed it out the room and told them to come back when they've got a better put together argument. It looked amateurish, it looked childish, it sounded like sociology students from first year in some lower tier college. It was an unimpressive set of arguments, and yet within seconds they were able to get a stay on President Trump's policies, or in this case, an executive order, by an activist judge, a known, flagrantly activist, in my view, flagrantly activist judge. Now, I went back to look at Judge Ali Khan's, Senate confirmation hearings. You're looking at a snot-nosed little schoolgirl with attitude, clearly a social justice activist, clearly believes that the law is something that you think about. If it suits your position, fine. But she's there to instigate and administer social change, and she's a social change agent, and she's going to use the position of a judge that they're supposed to and swears an oath to uphold the law and the Constitution, all this sort of thing. That oath doesn't mean jack shit. What it means is the social change I can inflict on the country, and now she's clearly a Trump hater, in my view, clearly a Trump hater, and so these activists who want to block one of Trump's executive orders, they go straight to a known radical activist judge and they put a piss poor argument up, piss poor filings, and they instantly get what they want. Now, that facility, that the mechanics of being able to do that is what is, I think, among the biggest challenges facing legal jurisprudence in the United States and all across the Western world today. Now, if a constitutional judge sort of hears the case and says, yeah, well, okay, there's merit in this, then fine, that's the law, the evidence, the facts. But to go into the document and say, well, Orange Man bad, we say his intentions are bad, because one time years ago he said this when he was in a campaign rally, and that means, and therefore, and so, and presenting that as evidence is an outrage to, I believe, the wow, excuse me, is that your evidence? Get the fuck out of my courtroom and stop wasting my time. But an activist judge once said, he said something that might upset poor little illegal aliens that committed mass murder or something. Well, we can't have that. Put a stay on. No, that's not application of the law or the Constitution. That's using activist judicial power to disrupt the policy program of the elected executive of the state. Now, where this, in my view, Judge Ali Khan, is a snot-nosed little punk-ass brat, high school kid attitude brat who was been given a job in the judiciary by those who willfully are seeking to subvert the judiciary. The fact that these activist DAs and whatnot went straight to her just shows they knew they were going to get what they want. Now, you can't do that when you have a filing which produces evidence, because a judge, a true judge, a real judge, a judge that considers the law, evidence, facts, Constitution, is going to look at it, may need to study it for days and consider it and come back with questions or give the other side a chance to present their argument, and so on. It would go that way, but instead they're able to go and instantly get a block, an emergency hearing, an emergency session, frantic, emergency. You've got to give us what we want, and they're even with their piss poor filing. Now, my concern here is that an activist judge has a conflict of interest. I hate Trump and I hate his policies. I'm pro-go. I'm a social justice activist. I'm a known social justice activist. Now, just like they can use any utterance that Trump ever made to say, well, that proves what he was going, then so that same standard needs to apply to the judge. So you posted something on social media that you think Trump's the worst president ever. You can't hear this case. You have a conflict of interest. You have a clear and manifest conflict of interest here, Judge. You cannot hear this case. You cannot accept this filing. So there needs to be, because now there are so many activist judges being placed by the Democrats, the globalist control, so many activist judges, most of them, brown women and so on, brown and black women. But there's so many activist judges being, that the whole legal system has been hopelessly subverted and compromised. It no longer functions as it's meant to. It's no longer fit for purpose. It is, again, as I say, hopelessly compromised and subverted, and I would argue corrupted, as in corruption of purpose corrupted, probably corrupted in other ways as well. But there needs to be a release valve on this where, in this case, the Trump administration goes saying, no, look, that stay or that order from that judge, it can't apply. Or that judge is an activist. And is a known activist, a clear activist, demonstrable, their behaviour, their activities, their writings, their thesis, their messages online, their social media, everything. They are clearly an activist. They cannot hear this case. We must have the case heard by the constitutional judge. And he's, but that's right wing and that's Nazi. No, it's not. That's how the legal system is supposed to function. A completely impartial, independent judiciary that's able to look at the law, the facts, the constitution, the evidence, hard evidence, not, somebody said that one day, somebody else said that Trump said, no, that's not fucking evidence. And to be able to put forward and to file documents that are clear and concise and produce evidence, not wild, hysterical social justice warrior, first year gender studies type student, things that they would hysterically claim, women's rights are taken away. No. Facts, evidence, law, the Constitution. And a constitutional judge has to hear that case. So there needs to be, and I think this now needs to be legislated, that because the legal system is so subverted and cannot and does not, nor do the globalists or Democrats want it to work as it was intended, they are willfully and deliberately subverting it, that there needs to be, no, judge, you can't hear this case. You have a conflict of interest and you must step down. And they can be compelled by law to step down, and that another judge can be found, or that maybe even a selection of judges and pick them out, pick it out of a hat or something. But the idea that activists can go straight to activist judges and get activist judgments, pro-globalist activists, that has to stop. And if a judge is shown to be an activist, which in my opinion Ali Khan most clearly is, then they should not have the power to or that if they make a judgment, automatically has to be kicked upstairs to an appeal court before the stay is applicable. So it has to go through a process where it can be shown that due legal process was afforded to both parties, not later on or weeks or months in the future, but right now. So you kind of acted, I believe, that must stop now, because the activists have massive power here to subvert. The subverted DAs and the subverted, attorneys general, that sort of thing, that they, affirmative action, DEI, flunkies and goons, they can go straight to activist judges and get judgments that affect national, the affect national policy and national law, or in this case, presidential executive orders. We need to come back to the beginning here and say, okay, you guys have fucked it up royally. You've subverted it to the point where it's so bent out of shape, it's almost useless. You've achieved at all levels, district courts, appeal courts, all that sort of thing, circuit courts. You just haven't fully compromised the Supreme Court yet, but you would if you could. And so we need to have a system in place where activists can be outed as activists. Say, well, you can't hear this case. You have a conflict of interest. it either goes to another judge or it's coupled with an immediate appeal in a higher court and so on. This is essential that it's done. You've been with Tacitus today, your Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.